So good afternoon, everyone, for those who are here in Australia, and good morning and good evening for those tuning from the rest of the world. So my name is Sarah from the UAP Australia chapter, and I'll be one of your hosts today. So hello and welcome to another UAP Australia webinar. Today's focus is all going to be about project management from a private and a public sector perspective here in Australia. So before we get started, we'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate to today's event. Ensure that you have downloaded the virtual background that was sent 2 hours ago to your registered email, and please be reminded to change your username in the given format posted in the chat box. So the format is first name, last name, dash the country. This is just so it's going to be easier for us to issue your certificate of completion after the event. So, and the following procedure shall be observed during the virtual meeting. So first is be aware of your surroundings and how you appear visually. A quiet location with no background noise and closed blinds or curtains on windows so that you are easier to see in the video. To limit distractions and create additional noise, please ensure that you are muted when you are not speaking. Be aware of your behavior because you are in a video conference. Others can see what you're doing at all times, and follow all instructions in a video conferencing invitation, and note important supplemental information such as a backup phone number in case you are disconnected. And last one is note that a representative from UAP Australia Board of Directors will be taking screenshots of the participants every 15 minutes to record attendance. So those who will not comply with the internal procedures will not be issued a certificate of completion. You will also have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the chat box. So you may send in your questions at any time during the presentation, and we will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. So I would like now to introduce our UAP Australia chapter president, Hazel Aguilar, for a welcoming address. Press Hazel, hi.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. A pleasant afternoon and evening to everyone. UAP Australia would like to welcome you to our second webinar, Project Management, Your Road to Practicing Your Technical Skills Down Under. It is with great honor to welcome our speakers, architects Riza Arcilia and Romeo Vergara. We would also like to welcome all our attendees from the rest of the world who might be watching us through our Facebook Live broadcast. Before we formally start the event, the UAP Australia chapter acknowledges the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and work, and all traditional owners of country throughout Australia. We recognize Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples' continuing connection to land, place, waters, and community. We pay our respects to their cultures, country, and elders, past and present and emerging. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to UAP Australia Chapter Secretary Sarah Ramos for the introduction of our first guest speaker.
Thank you, Hazel. So just to give everyone a brief background for our first speaker, I'll tell you a bit about her bio. Riza is a senior project manager working with Civils Australia within the Sydney office. Her background is originally with architecture, and she is a qualified architect by the Philippine Regulatory Commission. She has been in the industry for over 18 years, specifically in the project and facilities management for new builds and interior fit-outs, which include the construction of large-scale commercial buildings and interior projects for some of the world's largest corporations, such as Microsoft, Hewlett-Packard, Credit Suisse, and Cisco. She's been involved with the facilities management of 9 commercial buildings in New Zealand with a total floor area of approximately 77,100 square meters. She was also part in the implementation of a 300-hectare mixed-use development comprising residential, industrial, and commercial facilities in the Philippines. She currently delivers the redevelopment of a K-12 public school at Alexandria, New South Wales for the Department of Education. The project is comprised of 5 interconnected buildings that are 4 stories high with a project value of around $133 million. RISA is responsible with the overall management and implementation of projects on behalf of companies and government entities to ensure timely delivery, cost management, design guidance, and construction quality and safety control. As the client's single point of contact for the entire procurement, design, and implementation of the project, she also provides clients professional guidance and advice through all the project phases, which includes the coordination between the client, stakeholders, consultants, and contractors. Through this skill set combined with her project management and facilities management background, she provides her clients with a unique blend of design, construction, and operational experience, ensuring a successful project completion. So now, without further ado, let's welcome our first guest speaker, Architect Riza Arcelia.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to my esteemed colleagues in the industry. So this webinar will basically focus on the knowledge areas of project management based on the project management body of knowledge, which is popularly called the PM Book Guide. So on my first slide here, I'll just say that the PM Book definition of project management states that it is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet project requirements. So in simple terms, project management is the way a person organizes and manages resources that are necessary to complete a project. So what is a project? So a project is an objective that has a clear outcome bounded by cost and time. So next slide. So on the next slide, project management, how is it accomplished? So it is accomplished through the application and integration of the project management processes of initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling, and closing. So for the appreciation of everyone, I've included here a chart to show the life cycle of a project and the activities that relate to each process. So in the initiating phase, the main objective is to identify what the project scope is. Budget and target completion date must also be defined. During the planning phase, which is the next phase, the project manager develops the project execution plan. So during my talk, you will more or less hear me talk about the project execution plan, which is the Bible that a project manager uses throughout the lifespan of the project. It comprises of all the various documentation that Romeo and I will discuss throughout this talk. So the project execution plan is popularly called the PAP. This document is developed throughout the project life cycle to identify all the fundamentals in project management. The PEP is like the guide on how the project objectives and requirements will be achieved. So project execution is when the project manager puts into action the planned activities noted within the project execution plan, including engaging the consultants and contractors that will develop the documentation and build the project. Project monitoring phase is during construction, when a project manager monitors various aspects of the project in terms of quality, compliance, precise delivery of the design documentation, adherence to the contract, etc. Project controlling occurs during the construction stage, where changes are sometimes imminent because of latent conditions on site, or when stakeholders trigger a change in requirements. This is the phase where the project manager applies corrective actions in order to ensure that the project is still within time and budget. Lastly, the closing phase ensures that when the project is handed over to the clients, defects have been addressed, operations and maintenance manuals are accurate, and completion and occupancy certificates are in place in order for the client to have seamless operations of the facility. So now we probably wonder what really is the importance of project managers. Anyway, a client may directly engage a designer to prepare all the documentation and appoint a contractor to execute the design. Then what is the use of a project manager? Firstly, by hiring a dedicated person, you'll be able to take advantage of their many skills while ensuring that your project is completed within budget and to the deadline. A project manager will have expertise in various project types. The project manager will lend their wealth of experience in your project. This means you'll be able to take advantage of what they've learned about what has and hasn't worked for them in the past. A project manager will be able to deliver on your budget or as close to as possible. If things change, you'll know about it right away, and your project manager will be able to adjust things to make sure everything is running smoothly. Lastly, effective resource planning is another important part of a project manager's role. Their in-depth knowledge of the work required will enable them to best plan out who will play a part in helping the project through completion. So what are project objectives? Objectives are what you plan to achieve by end of the project. The project objectives should be attainable, time-bounded, and measurable or tangible at the end of your project. So the Project Management Institute is the world's leading authority on project management. PMI empowers people to make ideas a reality. Through global advocacy, networking, collaboration, research, and education, PMI prepares organizations and individuals to work smarter in an ever-changing and dynamic world. PMI has divided the large field of project management into more digestible parts, which it calls the project management knowledge areas. And it's a guide to project management book of knowledge, which is the PM book. Project management knowledge areas coincide with the process groups, which are project initiation, project planning, project execution, monitoring, controlling, and closing, which I have discussed earlier. These are the chronological phases that every project goes through. The knowledge areas take place during any of these process groups. You can think of process groups as horizontal, while the knowledge areas are vertical. The knowledge areas are the core technical subject matter, which are necessary for effective project management. Let me use my current project in Alexandria as an example when discussing the tools and techniques used to support the project management knowledge areas in the succeeding pages. Alexandria Port Community School is comprised of 5 buildings with a floor plate of approximately 18,000 square meters. The project budget is estimated at 133 million, and the project completion date is December 2021, which is end of this year. The school should be built to cater for 1,800 students from kindergarten to year 12. The first project management knowledge area that I will discuss is project human resource management. One of the most rewarding parts of this process is creating teams that work and have the expertise to deliver your project objectives. That's why this project management knowledge area is more than just setting schedules and assigning tasks. The project human resource management processes include the following. Firstly, sorry, can you please mute your backgrounds? So firstly, human resource planning. This is where the project manager identify and document project roles, responsibilities, and report relationships. as well as creating staffing management plan. I will share with you in the succeeding slides a sample tool used for this process, which is called the RACI chart. The next one is acquire a project team. This process is when the project manager obtains the human resources needed to complete the project. Romeo, later during his talk, will expound more on the procurement management. Acquiring the project team falls within this body of knowledge as well. Thirdly, develop a project team. This process pertains to tools and strategies to improve the competencies and interaction of team members to enhance project performance. I will share with you later samples of communication plan tables in the latter part of my discussion. Fourthly, manage project teams. A project manager tracks team members' performance, provides feedbacks, resolves issues, and coordinates changes to enhance project performance. Team members don't operate in isolation. For a team to be effective, for a team to be an effective unit, all members need to understand, firstly, the team's objectives, everyone's roles and responsibilities, priorities of their workload, expected standard of their work, timelines, and how they are progressing. These are expounded within the project execution plan. However, I'd like to show an example of a tool that is generally used by a project manager in defining the roles of each team member. The RACI chart, which is what you see on your screen right now. RACI means responsible, accountable, consult, and informed. This chart outlines the responsibility of each team member. I have chosen an example of a project phase that you would be most familiar with, design and construction phase, to show you the responsibilities of each team member. As an example, in Alexandria Park, which is my project, in the construction stage, item number 3, it notes that the project manager and quantity surveyor are responsible in monitoring quality and budget, and the client always stays informed. Effective resource management requires you to know and work with the bandwidth of your team, identify their individual strength and their synergy with other consulting teams. Proper resourcing will set your team up for success and increase commitment as you invest their skills and knowledge and essentially get the best result for your project. The stakeholders must always be happy, as the project has been created for their needs. Therefore, they must be actively managed like any other part of the project. To start, one must identify the stakeholders and the members of the project team by creating a project organizational chart. This chart will identify governance and reporting lines. The project governance provides direction and defines decision-making procedures and metrics for validating impacts to the project. It also enables the project team to deliver on requirements and creates a forum for issue resolution to occur in a timely manner. So my first example here is an organizational chart that I use when I had a management contracting delivery project, where all the vendors are directly engaged by the client. The project manager acts as the conduit in all matters and communications between the client, stakeholders, and the vendors. Escalation point for any issues is through the project manager. The next example is that of my current project, Alexandria Park Community School, wherein the project was delivered through design and construct methodology. Similarly, the project manager acts as the conduit between the client and the head contractor. However, the consulting team and vendors are engaged through the contractor. The escalation point, if any resolution in the project is necessary, will not be directly to the project manager, as the vendors would need to course through the head contractor to raise any concerns that the project manager and the client need to address. The project team is your most important resource, so it's crucial to assemble the best team suited for the nature of the project. The project manager also need to track their performance to ensure that the project is progressing as planned. A human resource management plan needs to be included within the project execution plan. The human resource management plan will identify the roles and the requirements of each position of the project, as well as how they fit in the overall project structure. The second project management knowledge area is project communications management. The goal of communication is the transfer of information, whereby the sender and receiver have the same understanding of the message. 4 aspects of communication management include the following. Communications planning. The project manager must determine the information and communications needed of the project stakeholders. Information distribution. The project manager need to ensure the needed information are available to project stakeholders in a timely manner. Performance reporting. This is collecting and the distribution performance information, which includes status reporting, progress measurement, and forecasting. And the management of stakeholders. The project manager shall manage communications to satisfy the requirements of and resolve issues with project stakeholders. Just an overview. The communication management plan should be included within the project execution plan, and it should include stakeholder communication requirements, information to be communicated, including format, content, level of detail, persons responsible for communicating the information, methods or techniques used to convey information, frequency of the communication, issues escalation and resolution process, continuous improvement process for communication, and glossary of common terms. I will share with you in succeeding pages some charts that contain the necessary information in a communication management plan. So this is an example of a chart used in Alexandria Park Community School, which shows the internal and external meetings conducted on a regular basis. This chart will go into the project execution plan. It provides details on information to be communicated, including format, content, level of detail, persons responsible for communicating the information. The second slide is an overview of reports that need to be circulated. Similarly, it will go into the project execution plan and shall contain details on information to be communicated, including format, content, level of detail, persons responsible for communicating the information, methods or techniques used to convey information, and frequency of communication. The third project management knowledge area is project risk management. The objectives of project risk management are to increase the probability and impact of positive events and decrease the probability and impact of events adverse to the project. These are the project risk management processes. Risk management planning is deciding how to approach, plan, and execute the risk management activities for a project. Risk identification. Project risk involves understanding potential problems that might occur on the project and how they may impede project success. Qualitative risk analysis examines and prioritizes the risk based on their probability of occurring and the impact on the project if the risk did occur. Quantitative risk analysis analyzes the effect of those risk events and assign a numerical rating to those risks. It also presents a quantitative approach to making decisions in the presence of uncertainty. Risk response planning addresses the risk but by their priority, inserting resources and activities into the budget, schedule, and project management plans. Risk monitoring and control regularly monitor risk environment to identify changes in circumstances that impact on project risk. So this is where the implemented agreed risk responses and modified plans to maintain currency of risk treatments and controls happen. So on the succeeding slides, I will share with you a sample of a risk register that was used for my project in Alexandria Park. Firstly, identify the risk is an internal or external risk. Example of internal risk include inaccurate estimates, undefined quality requirements, unauthorized changes to scope, limited resource availability, and variable stakeholder expectations. Example of an external risk include fluctuating economic cycles, increased compliance, variable contractor performance, social changes, legislative constraints, and international standards or regulations. And we could probably consider COVID as an external risk at the moment. In the case of Alexandria Park Community School, the risk has been identified as an increase in compliance. At the time the project was seeking for council's approval on the works, the council have added scope to the work in the public domain area, meaning to say the pavements and the sidewalk. These are not within the scope of work of the project because it is outside the boundaries of the property. The council have asked for the project to add more street lighting, replace all the pavement into herringbone pavers, and relocate and prune some tree areas, etc. So after we identify the risk, we assess the risk. So determine risk analysis classification criteria and apply to an agreed risk ranking system. So in this case, it was determined that the cost and the schedule will be impacted if risk is not mitigated. Use risk analysis processes within delegated authority to analyze and qualify risk, threats, and opportunities. Qualitative risk analysis was applied, and the rating for the probability of the risk happening is a 5. Quantitative risk analysis was a 25, which means that the impact to the project is high. And I mentioned earlier about cost and time being the major factors that will be impacted on this project. And risk mitigation, on this section, the following have been determined. Identify and document existing risk controls. Consider and determine risk treatment options using agreed consultative methods. Record and implement agreed risk treatments, and update risk plans and allocate risk responsibilities to project team members. In the case of Alexandria Park Community School, the increase in scope required by the council on the public domain works have not been budgeted nor included in the schedule of works. As it may take a while to negotiate with council and seek additional funding from the project sponsors, we have decided to seek advice from the planners and submit a modification to DPI, which is the Department of Industry and Planning. To face this planning approval, there is a condition within our SSDA planning approval, which means that the council has a say in providing requirements for the public domain. So what we've decided is to phase this condition out in the latter part of our project and not included within the timeline of our project so that the risk is mitigated. Project risk should be assessed according to organizational risk management processes. A risk management plan must be prepared and incorporated within the project execution plan. The risk management plan must identify methodology for managing risk, roles and responsibility, risk analysis scoring, risk categories, probability impact matrix, reporting formats, risk monitoring, tracking, etc. The fourth project management knowledge area is project quality management. Quality assurance is the preparation of the quality aspects of the project, which defines the criteria, tolerances, and processes of both the project and the service being produced. From a practical project management perspective, this includes setting quality criteria. For example, the engineers provide a performance specification document for the engineering services. This is the outcome in quality expected of the project. If the performance specification says that the standard ambient temperature is 24 degrees, then the mechanical contractor must ensure that the temperature is set at 24 degrees. Another basis for quality assurance is compliance with any overarching quality systems. For example, ISO 9001 for General Management System Standards or IS-2 14000, the Environment Management System Standards. If quality assurance pertains to measurable outcome, quality control, on the other hand, suggests how this will be carried out in a project. In quality control, the project must establish quality management methods, techniques, and tools to resolve any quality issues. It is the responsibility of the project manager to ensure that the project itself is meeting quality requirements. In the case of Alexandria Park Community School, I was working with the Department of Education's construction quality specialist. We do not want to wait until the handover of the project to identify defects. Throughout the construction phase, the CQS inspects the site regularly, as they may be defects that are not visible to the naked eye after handover. For example, Photo 1 shows that there is insufficient head height, less than 2.1 meters under the pipe at the top ramp behind the stage in the gymnasium of the school. So this must be remediated prior to handover. Another example is that of Photo 2, where the clear out for the toilet is partially in the wall. This would be an issue for maintenance when the facility is already in operation. Because these defects were identified early within the construction phase, there is an opportunity to remediate before it's too late. Quality management includes these three main actions. Quality planning is setting the parameters for quality and how to satisfy them. Performance quality assurance is applying the planned systematic quality activities to ensure that the project employs all processes needed to meet these parameters. Performance quality control is monitoring specific project results to determine whether they comply with certain quality standards and identify ways to eliminate causes of unsatisfactory performance. Usually, as in the case of most projects, a robust design documentation, design specifications, and performance guidelines are the best basis or baseline in checking compliance to requirements. In the case of Alexandria Park Community School, we conduct a meeting of buildability of design, safety and design meetings, regular commissioning meetings prior to the handover to ensure that all issues are addressed at every phase of the project. As a project manager, you need to be proactive. Raise possible issues even if it has not happened yet. Learn to question your consultants and contractors if you feel that there is a risk in quality. Prevention over inspection means that quality is planned, designed, and built in rather than inspected in, because the cost of preventing mistakes is generally much less than the cost of correcting them. So now I will share my pathway on how I became a project manager. So I graduated from the University of Santo Tomas with a degree in architecture in year 2000. I started working immediately after in Periquet, Galicia, with Tina Periquet in an interior design firm. I was inspired by Tina because besides studying interior design, she also studied Masters in Interior Design in Pratt Institute, and she studied MBA in the Ateneo. And during my conversations with her, I was trying to knot out the details and sort of see my pathway in my profession. And she suggested, you know what, Riza, why don't you study MBA? She said the weaknesses in most professions is that they do not know how to manage themselves. So from then on started my management career. I studied MBA from the Ateneo de Manila University and graduated in year 2004. While still working with Tina, we had a client. His name is architect Nestor Mangyo, and he's a big developer in Pampanga. He saw my capabilities in interior design, and at the same time, when I applied with his firm, he was looking for someone who could manage his technical group. So I worked with the Lakeshore in Pampanga for 4.5 years, and I managed a group of engineers weekly, looking out for the budget and the timeline. And at the same time, I was also doing business development with architect Mangyo, marketing the development abroad. We usually travel to the US and Korea and some parts of Asia to market the Lakeshore. After that, while working at the Lakeshore, I noticed that there was some advantage in actually knowing facility management, because after handover, you would wonder how will someone take care of this facility that you've beautifully built, and who will continue on maintaining it. So I studied property management from the De La Salle University. And after that, I migrated to New Zealand. And in New Zealand, I worked as a facility manager in a local New Zealand development firm. After a year, I moved over to Singapore, and Jones Lang LaSalle scouted me out, and they were saying, you know, you're a project manager. And without that formal study in the Philippines, I was like, okay, so project management is not really formally studied in the Philippines. It's part of MBA. It's a course within MBA, but I'm not sure right now because I haven't lived in the Philippines for quite a while. I'm not sure if there's already a formal study in project management. So during that time, when I moved in 2008 in Singapore, my former boss in Jones Lang LaSalle said, okay, so you're a project manager. Your job description says that you are a project manager. So it's either you'll sink or you'll swim in this industry, Riza, and we want to hire you as an assistant project manager. So then started my journey in project management. And after 4.5 years of living in Singapore, I've decided to migrate to Australia. And I was fortunate enough that my next employer in Singapore, CB Richard Ellis, have found me a role in Adelaide. And I entered Australia through state sponsorship. The assessing body was VetAssess, and then started my journey and career in project management here in Australia. So that's just an overview of my professional pathways. You may visit this website to find some project management courses suited for you. AIPM endorses these courses as these consistently demonstrate outcomes aligned to a relevant project management methodology and which reflect Australian industry standards and current best practice. These courses and qualifications range from short courses to vocational, educational, and training courses to university and diploma courses, specializing in project management. So you may find courses in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, Canberra, even online and more. If you have been practicing as a project manager, however, have never had the formal education in project management, you may still be qualified for certification. Could someone please silence their
Baka gusto niya maglinis-linis muna.
please mute their
Araw ang
screen?
binabayaran ko sa kanya.
Please mute their screen.
Sabihin mo, hindi pa tapos.
Please mute their screen. Okay, sorry about that. So if you have been practicing as a project manager, however, have never had the formal education in project management, you may still be qualified for certification based on the knowledge that you have incurred throughout your years of experience in the practice of the profession. I will explain 3 out of 5 of the most popular certification courses in project management here in Australia. Lastly, the best mentor of all I've experienced is to actually practicing the profession. You may start as an assistant project manager in a consultant firm, a cadet in a construction firm, a project and administrator in a development or consulting firm, or a design manager, and you will find that if you focus on getting into project management with these entry points, the opportunity will lead you to the way of being a project manager. Out of the 5 most popular certifications in Australia, I will only touch briefly on 3 of the most popular ones amongst the construction project manager practitioners. So PMI stands for Project Management Institute. The Project Management Institute is the organization that gives out the PMP, which is the Project Management Professional Credential. This globally recognizes certificate and assures employers that a person is trained and qualified to manage projects. PMI is also the organization that oversees the documentation of the PM book, which is what Romeo and I are currently presenting to you. Romeo, being a member of AIPM and a certified practicing senior project manager here in Australia, will explain this certification in detail later on in his talk. PRINCE2 is a project management methodology which tailors to the industry's best practice. In PRINCE2, you will be trained to approach the project in a structured way, wherein it recommends avoidance of reinventing the wheel. PRINCE2 stands for Projects in Controlled Environments. PRINCE2 is a globally recognized qualification endorsed by the UK government and best practice for project management. In fact, not only is it the #1 benchmark of capability within the industry, it is also considered as a key qualification for those looking to progress their project management career. I wanted to share the organizational structure in a project management consultancy firm. Most of the multinational companies I worked with, Jones Lang LaSalle, which is now JLL, CB Richard Ellis, which is now CBRE, and Savills, which is my present company, will more or less have the same structure. So for the technical pathway, it focuses on excellence in project delivery. This pathway reinforces the commitment of companies in providing clients with the best service in the industry without distraction of operational pressures. So as mentioned earlier, if you've got that technical skill in construction, whether you're an architect, an engineer, you're a QS or a QA, you could start by being a graduate or an assistant project manager. And this would most likely be the ladder that you'll be climbing. Now the more juicy parts of my talks. You're probably wondering, so what does a project manager earn? So just I've just chosen three categories here, which is the assistant project manager's salary, ranging from $57,500 to $100,000 per year here in specifically here in Sydney. A project manager base salary would more or less be $75,000 to $170,000 here in Sydney. And a senior project manager salary would more or less be $104,000 to $245,000 per year. Of course, having said that, the range in salary structure here depends on your experience, your capabilities, and most important, how you communicate, because that's basically how most employers will see how you're adept to communication, how you liaise with people. So if you've got any questions will be answered after Romeo's talk. If you want to connect, here are my details. Thank you very much, and thanks for listening.
Thank you, Riza. Now I will introduce you to our second guest speaker. Romeo Vergara is a program manager at the Housing Program Office Division of the Department of Infrastructure, Planning and Logistics in the Northern Territory of Australia. He is a certified practicing senior project manager, a council member of the Australian Institute of Project Management in Northern Territory chapter, and member of the Board of Directors of the United Architects of the Philippines Australia chapter. Romeo completed his Bachelor of Science in Architecture at Manuel S. and Verga University Foundation in Lucena City, and is a former member of the UAP Quezon Province chapter. He continued his education in Australia, gaining qualifications such as Diploma of Project Management, Diploma of Government in Procurement and Contracting, Certificate 4 in Leadership and Management, Certificate 4 in Government Procurement, and Certificate 4 in Building. And he is currently undertaking the Leadership and Capability Program of the Northern Territory Government. Romeo's current role is to oversee the delivery of the government's $2.12 billion housing program in the Northern Territory, particularly in the remote areas in the Greater Darwin region. Romeo is now on his 14th year as public servant. He will continue to talk about the remaining fundamentals of project management and will later share the pathways he has done in the project management profession. Please welcome our next speaker, Architect Romeo Vergara.
Thank you, President Hazel, for that delightful introduction. And good evening or afternoon, everyone. Raisa started a very informative topic about fundamentals of project management. All examples that I will be using for my presentations are based on the Northern Territory government tools. So The next knowledge area is the project scope management. Project scope management is mainly concerned with defining and controlling the requirements in the project. So the processes are scope planning, scope definition, create a work breakdown structure, scope verification, and scope control. In scope planning, this is usually initiated by the client. So the example is a project brief that you can see on the screen. This is where you can find the initial information such as the objective of the project, the program funding, project description, etc. So the next one is the scope definition. It is very important to document the all the stakeholders need, their expectations, and their requirements. You have to know if there are special needs required, such as disability, if there are trees that needs to be removed on the site, and other considerations, such as orientation of the home. Sometimes the client wants the entrance on the other side of the property. So those are the considerations that we need to put in our scope. Create work breakdown structure. So if this scope is challenging, the work breakdown structure will assist to organize the total scope of the project. And there are lots of simple templates that you can use. So on the screen, you can see on the right column the part of the project. Then you can write from the scoping, design documentation, and if the project is within the new subdivision, you need the site servicing plan, the civil drawings, and you need to undertake the work estimate and procure the project, and then to the construction stage up to the handover and DLP. DLP stands for Defects Liability Period, because in the Northern Territory government, once the project is complete, the contractor is still liable for within the 12 months or whatever is written in the contract. And in this work breakdown structure, you can see all the responsible department or individuals on those part or stage of the project. And the scope verification. This is the process of obtaining the stakeholders of the client's final acceptance of the scope and deliverables. For instance, if the project is about the modifications to the existing house, so you have to draw and present what areas of the house to be modified. As you can see in the drawing, that it is highlighted in red. So the next one is the scope control. It is very important also that we control the scopes in all stages of project management, as it will affect the budget as well as time frame. So all requested changes and any unforeseen circumstances should be assessed carefully and well managed. So what you can see on the screen now is the example of the request for tender documents. Because after finalizing the scope, it will be formalized to a request for tender where all this specification is written. All other documents as complete design set, compliance, certification, building permit will be attached to this specification and form part of the contract. And the next knowledge area is time management. So project time management consists of progression required to complete the project in a timely manner. And the processes are the activity definition, the sequencing, resource estimating, activity duration estimating, schedule development, and schedule control. So our department is using the Microsoft project, using the Gantt chart in managing the time. This is a very good tool that I know everyone is using in their projects, even in your design projects. So the next knowledge area of project management is managing the costs. Project cost management contains the procedure involved in planning, in controlling costs, budgeting, and estimating so that the project can be done within the agreed budget. And the processes are cost control, cost budgeting, and cost estimating. In cost control, our department is using the MOCA software or asset information system to record or manage the contract budget, expenditures, and anything related to contract and financial transactions. In cost budgeting, the project manager should manage the provisions and expenditure against all components of the project. For instance, this project that I'm doing now is to construct 11 dwellings in one of the communities. And those 11 dwellings will be constructed in different packages. So I have a budget of $5 million for 11 dwellings, and I have to assign a provision in each component, as you can see on the screen. So we have provision for works contingency, we have provisions for the design, for the subdivisions, and also for the project managers, for the consultant working on this project. And we have the cost estimating. In a complex project, the department engaged a quantity surveyors for the project estimate for the accuracy, so that when we present it to the client, our estimate is close to reality of how much our project will cost. The next knowledge area is the procurement management. This procurement management is the most challenging area among all the areas that project manager's responsibility, because there are lots of approvals, there are lots of consideration, and there are lots of processes that you need to do before you can put the tender documents out to the public. So project procurement management includes processes to purchase or acquire the products, services, or results needed from outside the project team to perform the work. And the processes are plan purchases and acquisition, plan contracting, request seller responses, select sellers, contract administration, and contract closure. On the first process, this is where we prepare the procurement activity plan. This plan is about 15 to 30 pages, and the one that you can see on the screen is only the first page, providing the summary and of tender information, such as brief description of works, estimated value, and the time frame. In the plan contracting, this stage in the Northern Territory procurement has a different tiers. This might be different in different states, but in here in the Northern Territory we have 5 tiers. Tier 1, if the project is less than 15,000. Tier 2, 15 to 100,000. Tier 3, 100 to 500. Tier 4, 500 to 5 million, and Tier 5, 5 million and greater. So a tender can be a select tender or a public tender. In select tender, we usually specify a contractor who can only submit their quotation, while public tender is obviously open for everyone to submit their response schedule, or known as the quotation. The request seller responses. So, in a public tender, we usually advertise through quotations and tenders online at Northern Territory website. The response schedules, or known as quotations, must be received by the specified date and time. And select sellers. So the procurement team and the assessment panel will then examine and assess all the tenders received, or the quotations received, with the best value for territory, or best value for money. The criteria for assessment are the following: past performance, local content. It means that you are a local contractor in the Northern Territory. Timeliness, for instance, every time we release a tender, we specify the time frame, and if you responded that you cannot do the time frame, you will be scored low in your timeliness. And capacity, we examine your capacity and capability to deliver the works. And also another criteria is your price, where in the lowest tender will get the 20% of the criteria, and will be factored according to their differences. And after the assessment, once the tender assessment is complete, the department will award the contract to the contractor with the highest average score and offering the best value for money. And the successful contractor will receive the notice of acceptance, as you can see on the screen. Apologies, because I covered all the confidential information on the template. But this is an actual notice of acceptance provided to the successful contractor. And after awarding, we have to manage the contract. And after the contract, we have to close it as per the guidelines of the department. The contract closure, and for us project managers to be able to manage the contract closure, the project manager must have a register for progress claims and variations. The example on the screen is what I use with the help of Microsoft Excel software. And the area highlighted in yellow at the end of the contract must be 0 to confirm that the finances are correct. And it happens sometimes if the project manager don't monitor the payments and the variations. At the end of the contract, they realize that the contractor is overpaid, and that will start of the argument between the contractor and the department and the project manager. So to avoid that, you should monitor it within the contract process. And the last one is the project integration management. The project integration management knowledge area embraces the practices and undertakings necessary to identify or define, combine, unify, and coordinate the many methods and project management process groups. The project manager and the project team needs to address all development. The level of implementation for each process must be determined for each specific project. And the processes are: develop project agreement, in the beginning, Raisa showed this cycle of project management. So this process is the initiating period. Improve preliminary project scope statement. This is the scoping stage. Develop project plan. This is the planning stage. And direct and manage project execution. Obviously, is the execution stage of the project. And monitor and controlling project work, the controlling stage. Integrated change control is the controlling stage. And of course, we have to close the project. So this is the system that we are using. So in a project, we use the content manager, or known as TRIM, Tower Record Information Management. So from the very beginning, from scoping or initiating to the planning and design, for engaging the consultants, to the construction stage, going to the closure, all the finances must be recorded in this system. So that in future you can find out, and if there is some question, you can go back and find all the details that you need. And it is very important to document. You have the full documentation in place once we need those details. And also, especially all the reportings that we need to provide to our clients. Now, in summary, we have heard from Raisa and from myself about the fundamentals of project management. So from human resources management, communication, risk, quality, scope, time, cost, the procurement, and the project integration management. So now, how did I change my career into project management from a registered architect in the Philippines? You might have seen this illustration, but this illustration reminds me on how did I change my career into project management. So when I started my career in the department in 2007, I visualized my idea, what would I be in 15 years' time? And I encourage you to do the same. So I created a vision, setting long-term goals. Setting long-term goals are paramount to success. I hope you will agree. So I focused on every small step, and this illustration was my pattern, how to get where I am now. I am now on my 14th year in the department, and I can say that I am on track with the long-term goal I had set 14 years ago. I'm currently working at the Northern Territory Department of Infrastructure Planning and Logistics. And to give you an idea how we arrived in Australia. So we arrived in Australia in 2005 through a family-sponsored visa. And I started my journey in the department in 2007 as a draftsman, a technical officer, which is actually a trainee officer. So I accepted the position, although I'm already a registered architect, for the reason that my qualification as a registered architect in the Philippines was not recognized here. So it was a challenge to level up my career during that time. And then I decided to study a certificate in building in 2008. After completion, I was promoted to the next level as project officer. And this time, I am starting to manage projects. And in 2009, the department asked me to study certificate in procurement to learn the government procurement processes. Then after that, I was promoted to a senior project officer level. And during that time, I completed my diploma in project management. That was in 2009. And then I became a associate member of the Australian Institute of Project Management. In 2010, I was promoted to a project manager level. So I never stopped gaining Australian qualification as I want to achieve the goal I had set in the beginning. So I took a higher qualification in government procurement and contracting. And in 2015, I was registered as a certified practicing project manager through Australian Institute of Project Management. Then I received my promotion in a senior project manager level in 2019. In 2018 as well, I studied a Certificate 4 in Leadership Management to enhance my employability. And during the time, surprisingly, I received a successful letter in 2019 for the role of a program manager level in a senior administrative level. So I've gone through the technical level to a senior administrative level. And blessing continued when I was selected to participate in the Leadership and Capability Program, where those successful applicants, the department are developing them or us for future senior leadership in the department. For those who don't know where the Northern Territory is, it is located at the top and mid of Australia. So the Department of Infrastructure is responsible for works across 73 communities. It is grouped in 3 regions: the Darwin region, the Northern region, and the Southern region. My area is within the Greater Darwin region. And our department has 6 divisions. First, the Northern region, the second, the Southern region, and the third, the Lands and Planning. Lands and Planning are responsible for management of land and land-related information and data. And the fourth division is the Transport and Civil Services, where they are responsible for developing strategies and programs to manage and deliver the territory's transport and civil infrastructure. And the fifth division is the Infrastructure Investment and Contracts. They are responsible for planning and delivery of the territory's infrastructure programs, such as government buildings and buildings occupied by every government agencies. And the sixth division, where I am working now, is the Housing Program Office, and we are responsible for housing investment. So in our region, we have a project director, and then myself as a program manager. And under my supervision, we have a bunch of consultant project managers who are managing the projects in every community. So consultant project managers are from different private firms, such as architectural firm, engineering, auditors, etc. So I'm going to share with you the Northern Territories program overview. The NT housing program consists of 4 portfolios. We have remote community housing. These are housing for our indigenous citizens in the remote areas. Government employee housing. This is housing provided for all professionals working in the remote areas. And urban public housing. This is for housing provided in the city or in the urban places, and other natural disaster relief and recovery arrangement, where sometimes, especially in the Northern Territory, we experience some disaster like typhoon or cyclones once a year or twice a year. And in our program delivery, we are starting with the consultation, and this consultation is between our department and our client, which is the Department of Territory, Families, Housing, and Communities. And then it will pass on to our specialists, which are our project managers, our site servicing specialists, which are working in the new subdivisions, and also our auditors. And also we have a design panels who are designing our buildings that we are constructing. And of course, the project will not be possible to construct without the contractors. So we have contractors for asbestos removal. As you know, Australia have very rich in asbestos, and most old building contains asbestos. And we also have contractors for subdivisions, and we have a contract and design and construct contract. So some contracts are only for building, constructing houses, but we also procure, design and construct together. And I'm going to share with you one of my design and construct project where two of the participants today or tonight were involved in the design stage of the project. They are Brian Munsod and Rachel Perillo. So this is the renowned state-of-the-art motorsports house at the world-known V8 Supercars event location at Hidden Valley in Darwin. This is the main entrance. And the other side is the one facing the racetrack. This is the interior lobby. And this is the view at the other side of the track. And the beautiful landscaping using the sweet potato plants. Very innovative. So now I'm going to discuss about some overview of the Australian Institute of Project Management. But if you have lots of questions that I cannot answer tonight, you can visit the website aipm.com.au. So if you would like to join the AIPM, we have a membership fee of $460 a year. And project management certification for every stage of your career. As I explained before, I was first registered as a certified practicing project manager, and then I became a certified practicing senior project manager. So we have different stages. Be recognized for the project management professional you are, and that will be our target. And why do we need to be registered as project manager? First reason, it validates our PM skills, experience, and expertise. It also strengthens our credibility across industries and demonstrates your commitment to the profession. It also enhances your employability. How does registered project manager certification work? The assessment process consists of initial discussion with the AIPM assessor. So in this stage, you must be already accepted with your application. Completion of assessment record book. You have to provide evidence of your recent project programs and answer questions on your knowledge of project program management. Just a heads up, if you're going to apply on this registration for project manager, you must be working now in one project, at least one project. Interview with AIPM assessor, examining your evidence and what you do and how you apply it in the context of your role. So they will check to ensure that the evidence meets the performance criteria for the level being assessed. Outcome recommendation of either competent or not yet competent, provided by the assessor to IIPM. Most of the assessment runs for 6 months. They will give you to complete the assessment within 6 months. AIPM validates the assessment process. Validates the assessment process has been fair and consistent and confirm or deny acceptance of recommendation. And if you complete and you're successful with the assessment, you will receive the certificate that you've met the requirements set by the Australian Institute of Project Management and registered to the level that you applied for. So this is the first level you can apply. If you are working as a project officer at this stage, not a project manager, you can apply for a certified practicing project practitioner with the fee of 1,490. And if you're already working as a project manager, you can apply for a certified practicing project manager for the cost of $2,000. And if you're already a senior project manager, you can apply that as a certified practicing senior project manager for the cost of $2,110. And if you're already a project director, you can apply for a certified practicing project director for the cost of $2,260. And if you are in an executive level, you can apply for a certified practicing for portfolio executive. So we have lots of job opportunity in our department. So just visit jobs.nt.gov.au. So this current position just closed this week, but there are more positions in the website. Just check it out. For this position, the primary objective is to manage the development and delivery of specific capital works, minor new works, and maintenance programs, and projects for building assets in the Catherine region, one of the regions I mentioned earlier, and ensuring projects are delivered. So what are the key duties and responsibilities for this role? Lead and mentor multidisciplinary project management teams. So you will be working with a team, incorporating internal and external resources across all disciplines involved in building construction, ensuring strong client focus is maintained at all times. Manage the design, planning, and delivery, which all of you architects are experts. So you are qualified on this. Delivery of large construction projects for building assets, and develop and recommend programs for minor new works for building assets in that region. Manage all phases of client project, program delivery on building asset management, construction program item relating to large capital works, and oversee the delivery of minor new works projects. So we discussed all the knowledge areas of project management. So this is the role. Undertake community consultation and engagement, including with industry, the general public, and indigenous community. So you have to travel in different communities. Most of the time, it's like a 5 hours drive just to reach the community. So most of the time when we are visiting the community, we stay there for a night or a couple of nights. And traveling to the community, it can be by land or by air or by sea. Carry out all duties in accordance with departmental work, health and safety, and equal employment opportunity and environmental guidelines. What are the essential selection criteria? A relevant qualification awarded by an Australian institution. If you don't have an Australian qualification, any equivalent, or relevant experience in the field of technical work closely related to the duties of the vacancy. If you can show that you have already experience in this field, then don't be afraid to apply. High-level written and oral communication skills, including the ability to effectively consult and collaborate and build strong professional work relationships with colleagues, external clients, and the community and industry. Third, detailed knowledge of contemporary best practice in business management, information and technology management, program and project management, contract management, asset management, and procurement practices. High-level knowledge of building industry, construction maintenance, and asset management techniques and practices, including buildings, land servicing, and hydraulics. Sound knowledge of contemporary financial and human resource management practices and strategic and business planning. You must have a well-developed knowledge of equal employment opportunity, work health and safety practices, as well as environmental control and sensitivities. An ability to interact effectively with people from diverse cultures. And because you will be driving, and you need a driver's license. And advanced diploma in project management is desirable, or including the government contract management. But if you have this qualification, you have an advantage with other applicants. Thank you, and that's all for my presentation. And we will now proceed with the question and answers. And if I cannot answer your question today or tonight, you can email me or Raisa or our secretary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Architect Raisa and Architect Romeo, for the very informative presentation. And I know we all have to agree with Sir Edwin Morales that we have two great resource persons with superb presentations and impressive credentials. So who else wants to jump career after seeing the juicy bits about the salary from both presentations? Okay, now we'll go ahead and take some time for questions. Just a reminder, if you haven't yet, please type your questions into the chat box. We will have 5 to 10 minutes for the questions and answer before we conclude today's webinar. So for our first question, it's a question from Architect Richard Gumabao to Architect Romeo. Is the work contingency for the project just 3%?
Just 3%. For the work contingency, this is defined by our client, and we, if it is needed, we can request additional contingency for the project, but we have to justify why do we need more. So we just provide a 3% contingency, but during the construction period, if needed to have additional to the scopes, then we need to provide a justification or reasons why do we need to.
Alrighty, thank you. Thank you, Architect Romeo. Another question from Architect Richard. How do you decide the CBR of prefab construction against in situ?
CPR stands for? So what do you mean by CPR? Because we mean CPR as Contractor's Performance Report.
Cost benefit ratio.
Sorry?
Cost benefit ratio.
Okay. So can you please say the question again, please, Sarah?
So how do you decide the cost benefit ratio of prefab construction against in situ, or in-site construction?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because we have a community that requires a prefab, and we have a community that requires in situ. It depends on the site situations, because if the location is very close to the ocean, we cannot put a prefab, because prefab mostly a steel construction method. But we have another alternative. It is the tilt panels with in other community as well. So so for your questions, it depends on the client's requirements or the condition of the sites. Did I answer your question, Richard?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Another question from Architect Richard. Does your team identify possible efficiencies in the project?
Identified, sorry.
Yeah,
I think Architect Raisa would answer this one.
Yeah, let me interject on that one. So in a project, there are certain measurement tools used. So different projects require different measuring tools. So it really depends on how big a project is, how big of a scale a project is. I'll give you an example for Alexandria Park, since it's a large scale project and it's an SSDA project, meaning to say it's a state significant project. So we've got various tools that the DOE and SAVILs have workshopped and used. But most importantly, I'll give you 5 of the most important measuring tools. Firstly is the WHS stat report, which is wherein we measure fatalities, if any, or medically treated injuries, or first aid treated injuries, how many inductions are on site. That's one tool to measure efficiency and safety. Another one is the, since the project has different phases, we've got another tool wherein we call the early defects handover report, wherein we get a number of all the defects and we measure them every other 2 weeks to know if how fast and expedient a contractor is, to determine if they would get future jobs for the department. Another important tool is the Aboriginal participation in construction and apprenticeship report. So being a state significant development, the government requires the use of Aboriginal employees. And since it's a big project, the government also requires that you train up trades. So in this APIC is what we call APIC and apprenticeship report. We provide the number and cost of the trades that have been engaged every month that are Aboriginal or apprentices. The other one is the audit and safety. This is done monthly by an external safety auditor, wherein everything is checked, even from the way the fire extinguishers are still valid, every single detail, the balustrades that are, and the walkways where all the contractors work in. So it's checked in every different aspect, even the little nail that goes onto site. The other one is the audit in compliance to the SSDA. So when you apply for a project, there's what we call an SSDA or a DA, and you guys would be very familiar with that being in architecture. So basically this auditor brings out the compliance certificate, goes through each of the conditions and checks if the contractor and the project is complying to every single condition that is listed on that SSDA or DA. So basically, those are the tools on how we measure the efficiencies in a project. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect Raisa. So we will have to conclude our webinar soon. So I'll just pick 2 very random questions. I'll just, okay. So this question is from Architect Mona Lisa. What was the most challenging experience you have faced in performing your role?
Architect Romeo, would you like me to answer that?
Yeah, and then I will answer. Yeah, I can answer.
Okay, so Mona Lisa, being a woman in construction, it is a challenge. And I'm sure you'll encounter that, especially being an Asian woman here down under in Australia, where a lot of practices are westernized and a lot of trades are on site. So I guess the biggest challenge for me really is trying to really go there right there in front of a male-dominated profession. Australia is very good in trying to promulgate the balance of gender in construction. However, we're still not there. So I guess the biggest challenge for me is really being a woman in construction and being an Asian in construction in Australia. And I always tell my friends, you know what? If it's a challenge, you always pull that I'm your paymaster card, and that's it. And people will start listening to you if they know that you're the paymaster. That's from my point of view. What's yours, Architect Romeo?
The challenge for me as a program manager is because I'm dealing with a number of project managers running my projects in different communities, is when the project managers are not performing very well. So it affects my program. So actually, in the past 3 months, I've sacked 3 project managers because I assess them every 3 months for their performance, and if they don't maintain their performance, I have to say goodbye. That's the agreement within the contract. They have to keep your CPR or consultant performance report up to the level that we are expecting. So those are the challenges. So you don't know that you'll get a good project managers until they are already on that role.
Yay, thank you, Sir Romeo and Architect Riza. Last 2 questions. Second to last is a question from Architect Ruth Ong. Having successfully transitioned from architecture to project management, do you ever miss the creative design aspect of architecture?
Shall I answer that first, Architect Romeo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for that question. Definitely. I do miss the design aspect of it. In fact, I do design. I still do design on the side for close friends and family. You know, the architecture will always be, since it's my core education, it will always be in my heart. But having said that, you know, even if you go into other professions, if something is in your heart, you will definitely go right back and still do it, even if it's just on the side. It's just same as saying I'm in project management, but I'm doing business and I have a business, or I'm in project management, or I'm in an architecture and I'm doing, for example, I'm doing makeup artistry in the side. So definitely I miss architecture, and you can always do multiple professions if you really put your heart into it.
Yeah. For me, I actually, because I've gained my registered architecture in the Philippines in 2004, and then we moved to Australia in 2005. I really don't have the experience in designing for a long period of time. So it is our passion as an architect to design. It is our that's why we took that degree. But I am more inclined in leadership and management. So, and I'm very glad that my pathway goes to the project management, and I'm very happy with what I'm doing now, and I'm still engaged in the design by reviewing the design, by giving suggestions or any views of what will be the best for these buildings that we are designing. So yeah, I still miss it, but I'm happy with the project management as my profession.
Sarah, can I just add something to that question?
Yes, of course.
I just wanted to share a funny experience, because when I started in project management, I started delving into the design even further. And being a project manager, I knew I had the power because I was the representative of the client. Until I was telling, you know, my team, hey, that's an ugly design. Maybe we should change this, change that. And someone in my team, like I think it was the contractor, reminding me that I'm no longer the architect in the team. So that's the only thing. Being in project management, the roles kind of differ. So I've always been kept reminded by my team that I'm no longer the designer. But having said that, having that technical knowledge and expertise actually boosts your project management profession, because you know how to read drawings, you know how to interpret them. So that's the advantage. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, and in our department, most of my colleagues don't know my background, that I am an architect. So so when we have some discussions about the design, they will just ask me, oh, why did you know that? And so those interaction within the team is being architect is an advantage because we have, just like what Raisa said, that we know how to read plans, and we know the contents of the drawings, what is needed, what is missing, and that is an advantage in the project management, that your background is architecture.
Hey, thank you both. And for our very last question, I just saw this and I think this is going to be very important. This is from architect Ryan Muska. Can project managers perform outside his or her state of jurisdiction?
Yes, you can. You can perform in every state. I think project management has no jurisdiction. Like the architecture, you have to register in every state, but this is nationally recognized. In the case of us, our department, because we engage project managers, but you must be employed by a Northern Territory firm or company.
Okay, I hope that answers it. Thank you very much. And to turn over the floor to present our certificate of appreciation to our speakers, I'm calling our chapter president, architect Hazel Aguilar.
So we're now presenting certificate of appreciation to Architect Raisa Marie Lavina G. Arcilia in grateful recognition for sharing her invaluable knowledge as a speaker during webinar Project Management, The Road to Practicing Your Technical Skills Down Under, issued this 26th of June 2021. Thank you, Architect Raisa.
Thank you.
And UAP Australia chapter presents the certificate of appreciation to Architect Romeo A. Vergara in grateful recognition for sharing his invaluable knowledge as a speaker during webinar Project Management, Your Road to Practicing Your Technical Skills Down Under, given this 26th of June 2021. Thank you, Architect Romeo.
Thank you.
So that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you all to those who have attended and participated in our question and answer. For those unanswered questions, we will be answering them in a Facebook post. So I believe Architect Jeff Roque has already collected them. So for the UIP Australia members, we will be seeing you guys in 5 minutes in another Zoom link for our third GMM. So thank you again for joining us today, and we will see you next time.